Kale's mind raced with fear and anger as he struggled against his attacker. Clutching the loaf of bread he had managed to steal earlier in the day to his chest with one hand and fending off his assailant with the other. His attacker, another ragged street urchin like himself, was bigger than Kale, but not by much. Starvation slowly gnawed away at him too, the inevitable fate of a life on the street in Hollowbrook. Though the boy's advantage was small, it was enough. The larger boy had chased Kale through the now darkened streets of Hollowbrook. The shutters, doors and ears of the town closed to Kale's cries for help. As Kale ran, he had found himself heading down a narrow alleyway and coming before an entrance to an underground passage to the sewers of the town. His mind racing of the horrors that supposedly lived in those dark depths, he had turned to face his attacker. As the urchins struggled, their breaths misted into the cold night air. Kale, feeling his strength leave him, his vision beginning to blur, refused to give up. He had watched the stalls at the bustling market for days, hunger gnawing at him, nearly causing him to rush forward with no abandon and gorge on the fruits and breads that lay so close by. He had held back, planned, and managed to get this one loaf without being caught. Anger fueling his next action, Kale lunged forward and sunk his teeth into the arm of the larger boy. As the metallic taste of blood filled Kale's mouth, the next few moments seemed to slow. He saw the larger boy's hand that had been reaching for the bread pull back and form a fist. Kale's vision began to blur anew as the larger boy's fist rained down on him. Crying out in pain, Kale stumbled back, feeling like he would vomit from the taste in his mouth and the pain in his head. He fell to his knees. Kale, breathing harshly, raised his head. Through the misting of his breath, he saw his attacker loom large. The boy's arm now bleeding profusely where Kale had bit him. "I was just going to steal the bread and leave you be," the boy spat, his voice now low and venomous. "Now though, you're dead." With rage in his eyes, he lunged, and with the bread now forgotten, the larger boy began to beat Kale. As each fist fell, it brought with it a new wave of agony. He had tried protecting the bread and his head at first, but when the larger boy's fists continued to rain down on his head, he forgot about his hard-won prize, letting the loaf fall to the filthy cobblestones, leaving his other arm free to join his failing defense. After what felt like eternity, Kale, through the fog of pain, could feel the ground moving beneath him. Through his adult thoughts, he realized the larger boy was dragging him towards the sewer's entrance. He tried to protest, but his mouth wouldn't form words. All that escaped his broken lips was a wheeze. The movement suddenly stopped. The boy leaned in close, his breath hot against Kale's ear. "You know what lives down there just as well as I do," he hissed. "I hope you live long enough to give something a fresh meal." With a grunt, the boy hauled Kale further into the sewer's gaping maw. The air damp and foul, clinging to Kale's skin like a second layer of grime. Then, with a final curse, the boy hurled him down the steep, filth-ridden steps. Feeling his body bent and broken, Kale lay face down on the damp cobblestones of the sewer. Managing to open one eye, he saw a black mass move across the stones. It moved back and forth in a zigzag motion before seemingly taking notice of him. The mass seemed to pause, parts of it reaching out as if tasting the air. Kale's heart began to race once again as the mass quivered and laboriously moved towards him. Kale tried to move, to scream even, but his body failed him on all accounts. The mass stopped just before Kale's face and seemed to regard him for a moment. Then pain erupted as the black mass forced its way into Kale's mouth and nose. His white eyes filled with terror before the darkness claimed him. Kale first became aware of his body and the lack of pain that it held. Next, he realized he wasn't breathing. Gasping for air, he opened his eyes and looked left, then right, and took in the carnage before him. Blood covered the alleyway and dripped from the walls in glistening streaks. Kale began trembling as he noticed the bodies, or what was left of them. He saw the tattered, bloody clothes of the boy he had been fighting and the bodies of 4 of the town's guards, only recognizable from their torn armor and dropped weapons. Kale's breath quickened as he looked over himself. He was whole. He felt no pain, but something was different. A faint voice whispered, cutting through the silence. Kale flinched, his eyes darting around. But the voice wasn't coming from the alley. It was inside his mind, repeating the same phrase over and over. A slow grin crept across Kale's face, his fear dissolving into something much darker. Hatred burned in his chest, consuming him as memories of the night flooded back, of the ones that had turned away from his pleas. He answered the voice, his tone cold and resolute. "We will make them pay."